So, I remember going to visit my dad in prison, and I remember living with my dad and Diane in Washington State after he got out. I remember he used to work for Northwest Airlines, and I remember my dad was patient and he'd wait, and my mother was far more reckless. My mom, when she would do her whole slapping thing, she didn't do it controlled like my dad did. My dad would wait for my stepmom to leave, Diane, and that's when he did things. My mom, she would just go off the fucking deep end and start slapping. A whole bunch of slaps, all rapid fire. Never closed fist. Always just slapping. And I'd cover her up and she'd slap me on my arms and on the top of my head and on my back. My dad was a lot different. He'd When I was younger, he just spanked me. Um, but my dad likes to lecture while he's hitting you, so he'll hit you and then he'll lecture you for a few minutes until he works himself up into a rage and then he hits you again. And then he tells you it's for your own good and that you had it coming and that it hurts you worse than it hurt or it hurts him worse than it hurts you. And then he'd work himself up again and hit you again. My dad's known for some really long fucking rants. Obviously, so am I. The thing is, I was always afraid of these people because of the terrible things that they just kept on doing and not caring how it affected those around them. My dad, to this day, won't take responsibility for the fact that me and my older brother grew up in the system because he was not a fit parent. And because my mother was not a fit parent, they were on drugs, just like Alicia and Natalie's parents. My dad, he never smacked me in the face or punched me in the face. It was always in the gut. He seemed to like the sounds that I made when he knocked the air out of me. And I'd stumble around the room trying to catch my breath. He's lecturing me while I'm stumbling around trying to catch my breath. And when I catch my breath, I hope he's not going to hit me again. And then he does. My dad only hit me maybe 2 or 3 times when he was sober. All the rest of the time, it was rum and Coca Cola. This is one of the few environments that I've been in where there weren't people screaming at each other in the house or hitting each other or throwing things at each other or doing the things that scare the living shit out of me. Atlanta and Amanda's, there was no real screaming. I mean, it was all mostly Lana being real snappy, and everybody in the house does as they're told. She's got a lot of control issues that way. She talks down to everyone like they're stupid, like they're dogs, like my dad does. Whenever I tried to explain what was going on, I'd get snapped at, and my dad's and Lana's. Here, I don't get snapped at. Up at Jamie's, it was a very happy and loving environment. It was the one place out of all of this where that was the environment that I was in. And her concerns were, for the most part, very adult. If Natalie had understood what I was going through, I believe she would have stopped it. I believe she would have told these people the truth. She just didn't believe me. If I could have taken screenshots of the Tim Beeson messages, I could have shown her, hey, this is what I'm having to deal with, Natalie. This is what happens when you tell somebody that if they don't show up, you're going to kill yourself, and then you try to kill yourself. And then they show up and you call them a stalker for doing what you wanted them to do. So at Jamie's, I didn't have to deal with her watching a bunch of shows about killing. Me and her son, we have a lot in common. We like to watch a lot of the same shows. We have a lot of the same interests and a lot of the same beliefs. Me and Jamie think completely differently. Jamie Jamie definitely yelled at me. I mean, that's recorded. But she didn't understand the things that I have to go through because I don't have actual family help. I don't have a family that cares. I don't have a family that's ever made any effort to understand. And all these places that I went, they said, well, what about family? Do you have any family? Do you have any family? Nearly all of these people, do you have any family? Well, what about these people? What about those people? No, I tried. Nobody cared. They cared enough to say that they would do things, but not enough to follow through. With Shannon Alvarado, she kept on promising me, we'll work on it tonight, Sean. After Zanny goes to bed, we'll work on it tonight. And then she'd get drunk and she'd yell at Rick for cheating on her, and he wasn't. Just any excuse to yell at somebody because she's drunk. And even though I don't believe that she would hit anybody, I was just waiting on her to punch me in the stomach. And I had to keep quiet. I had to not say nothing because I didn't want to get snapped at. I didn't want to end up homeless with that evidence and no help, and never get that evidence that I was waiting on Graham to send, that he finally sent almost 2 months later. He was supposed to send it out on Friday. He was supposed to have it sent out before I got to California. None of these people understand what it's like. Lana and Amanda, they don't understand what this is like. Miss Jerry doesn't understand what this is like. Jenny and Tyler don't understand what this is like. They don't. When your family does something wrong, I'm going to do the same thing I did when my family did something wrong. I'm going to speak up. And I already know that you're going to gang up on me when I speak out about your family. I already know that's going to happen. But it's not going to stop me. I can understand family protecting family, but not at the expense of someone else. If my little brother did something wrong to these women, I brought it up to my mom, and I brought it up to Michael. And Michael, you need to stop messing with these girls. They don't like you, Michael. And I knew he didn't like hearing it, but he needed to leave them alone. And I never hit him over that. I never threatened to hit him over it. I did yell at him a couple of times. I yelled at him once over Ann Ingersoll, and I can't remember who the other girl was that I yelled at him about. But when people came to me with their problems and said, "Hey, this guy won't leave me alone," I would ask them to leave him alone. I would. I'd be like, "Michael, please just leave her alone." But also, they never told me that Michael raped them. They just said he wouldn't leave them alone. And that's the thing, is that none of these people understood what I was going through, or that I was trying my best with what I had, or that I needed actual help in person. I didn't need people to do it for me. I needed people to do this with me. It doesn't matter how much evidence you save when nobody's going to listen to you and nobody's going to look at it because of the term mentally ill. It doesn't matter how much people want to help when they can't stop getting drunk and being assholes. A mean, it was 2 months worth of Shannon Alvarado screaming, and it was mostly at Rick. But it doesn't matter who it's at. I remember one of the foster homes that I was in, the mom and the dad were both real big screamers. They never screamed at the foster kids. They screamed at their own kids. And there was one of the foster daughters, one of the actual daughters that was there. She's really the only one that I really remember. I don't even remember how many kids they had. I just remember when she was getting screamed at, she always used to look at me like she was saying, "Please make it stop." And she was probably a couple years younger than me, I guess. And they just yelled at her so much, like no matter what she did, she got yelled at. I always hoped that she turned out all right, that she got out of there, that she got away from that. You guys are scared of me screaming on a computer screen. I got to deal with it in person. The more I scream, the more of that I'm having to deal with. Here, guy I'm staying with, he's passed out. Dexter's on again. A bunch of killing and a bunch of stuff I can't deal with. So I'm upstairs, cold as fuck. Still haven't found my phone. I recorded I recorded Ryan Ingersoll, and I was looking at my court paperwork from Carbon County, Wyoming, and as I'm reading it, it just hurts me to read it. What Rihanna had to say in that conversation we had versus what they said in the court paperwork are miles apart. Those cops didn't give a fuck about me as a human being any more than the cops here in Chapel, Nebraska gave a fuck about me as a human being. I record it all now. As much as I possibly can. I'd like to show you the pictures of all the dead people from the last 2 years. Natalie and Janine, Anna, Tiny, and Ryan. I posted up a video about Officer Abel Ramos dying of cancer. I found out today that that was incorrect, and I'm happy about that. I'm glad Ramos isn't dead. He's not a cop in Boulder anymore. Neither is Officer Paddock. needed a safe environment where I wasn't surrounded by abuse, where I didn't have to depend on alcoholics and drug dealers and drug users. That's what the police are supposed to be for. That's what Jen Beebe was supposed to be for, and Nicole Peralta and Tamara and Jeff Ritter and Kara Heller and Nicole Jarrell. My safe environments were the Starbucks on Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado, and Jamie's when she lived in the trailer house here in Chapel. And that's it. That's all of it. That's all of the safe environments that I've really had. When I'd go over to see Brandon and Veronica, there was a 50-50 chance that Veronica was gonna be crazy when I went over. Not over me, just over anything. She could fucking snap at anything. Like my dad. My dad yell at you in front of anybody, but he likes to hit you in private. My mom, she'll try to yell at you in private, but she'll snap in front of anybody. After what I've been through, I watch documentaries mostly. I don't watch TV. I don't want that drama in my life. I don't want the violence. I don't want the killing. You guys are so infatuated with fucking killing. You think that shootings and stabbings are the way most people are killed. Most of my friends were murdered by the weather and bad laws that forced them into the weather. Quake froze to death. Leprechaun froze to death. Quake Cox was Quake's real name. Quake Cox. And Brian Gray, that's Leprechaun's real name. And then Tommy, we called him Onyx. He died too after Natalie died. He was another heroin addict. I can't hear about Alicia dying. I can't handle that. I can't hear about Eric dying. I can't handle that. None of these people understood that I needed their help. I needed them to actually help and actually follow through with what they said they'd do. And Brenda said that I could use her mailbox. I needed her to actually get me my mail. That mail was important. Being at Tabby's and listening to Joshua Eichelberger yell at those poor girls. I was just waiting for him to punch me in the stomach. With Brett Roloff and his girlfriend, I was just waiting for both of them to punch me in the stomach. Being homeless in Boulder was great. I didn't have to stay with people who were mean to me. I could just leave. I could go to the other side of the mall. I could go to the other side of town. I could just get away from those people. When people were being bullied, I stuck up for them. I got between them and their aggressors. I got between them and their bullies. I got between them and their predators. You're not going to do this to them in front of me. But nobody ever did that for me. Nobody ever did that for me. They say, hey, Sean, if you ever need my help, come and let me know. And I let them know. And they just let people hurt me. They just watched. And all of these situations that I was in, my choices were trust these people or kill myself. Trust these people or fucking kill myself. None of them understood that. These people didn't understand what I was going through, that I'm not screaming at them because I hate them. I'm screaming because I'm in a fucked up goddamn environment and there's nothing I can do but take the abuse. You know, it's even more sick than living through that. People who are entertained by it. You know, it's more disgusting than being raped. People who are fixated by the TV while that shit's going on. You know, it's more fucked up than living through that hell. People who are entertained by it. You guys have no idea how fucking scary that shit is. When you've lived through that stuff, you don't want to see it on TV. It takes you back to those places, it takes you back to those memories. There's a bunch of stuff that y'all just don't understand. I loved Natalie Wright. I was mean to her when being nice and trying to explain it didn't work. Between when I went from Virginia to Boulder and the 13th or 14th of December, a year later, over a year later, Natalie hadn't talked to me once. I had to try to communicate entirely in texting to try to beg her to stop. I didn't stalk her, I harassed her to make these things stop. Natalie, fucking ask these people to stop. Tell the fucking truth. While I was being assaulted in public, harassed in public, slandered in public, none of these people who offered to help ever actually helped. No amount of food is going to make up for the fact that you didn't keep your word to come forward. Officer Scott DaCosta said that it's not illegal in the state of Nebraska to record people the way that I did. What that really shows me about these people is that they never had any intention of helping, or they would have. Erin Cockerham never had any intention of keeping her word. Katie Cahill never had any intention of keeping her word. All of these people wanted to keep it private, wanted to keep it private, wanted to keep it private. Bitch, keep your fucking word. It doesn't get to be private after what happened to me. Assisted suicide should be legal. If my dad had a choice between me going into a suicide booth and him telling the truth about hitting me growing up, what do you think he'd choose? If Natalie had a choice between telling the truth and seeing me blow my head off, what do you think she would have chose? Well, I wanted my life to end over the shit that I was going through. Her and Tim Mason were gearing up to shoot me. I'm not pissed off at them for threatening me. I'm pissed off at them for not following through. I'm pissed off at Dalton Crawford for not following through. I'm pissed off at every fucking one of these goddamn internet wingnuts who are infatuated with fucking death and killing. I'm pissed off at all of them for not following through. I'm not this fucking monster. But if you want to pretend I am to the point that you're threatening my fucking life, then goddamn it, follow through. You know who's the worst out of all of them, though? You know who's worse than the alcoholics? You know who's worse than the meth heads? You know who's worse than the heroin addict? You know who's worse than all of them? Candace fucking Bondurant.